for almost a full year in Canada. And that's what I mean about normalizing and accepting it. I feel as if the perpetrators of the anti-Semitic crime wave are testing like a child, seeing if there's any limits. And so far the answer is not really. You see illegal trespasses on university campuses that were tolerated for months. Police coming up with excuses for not enforcing the law. Compare that to the Emergencies Act, the riot horses deployed against completely peaceful trucker protesters. And so I say that even though I'm Jewish and some of the guests we interview on the show are Jewish, I do believe, and I have to believe, that I would stand up for another group that was subject to such similar abuse. So why is it being tolerated? Joining us now to talk about this and various conundrums and to rehash some of the crazier stories of recent weeks is our friend Barbara Kay, a columnist for the National Post and other wonderful places. Good to see you again, Barbara.
Great to be here, Ezra.
There's
Thanks.
something weird about this anti-Semitic crime wave. All the authorities want to downplay it. I mean, let me tell you from personal experience. I heard on the news that a school bus caught fire at 5 a.m. And I think school buses don't catch fire. They don't spontaneously combust. Maybe if it's driving and it overheats, the engine smokes. But I just thought that doesn't sound right. And when I heard where it was, I thought, I know exactly where that is. I went there, and it was near a synagogue. And these were a bunch of school buses for Jewish schools parked and marked for the Jewish schools. And I thought, why did the police and why did the media cover up the Jewish character of these buses and just say the absurd statement, a school bus caught fire at 5 a.m. And 2 days later, a Jewish school not far from my house had an arson attack, the window smashed, and they said, no, just a shed in the back was attacked. Last example, there's a Jewish school, again, not far from where I am, where in the morning, 2 masked people shot bullets at it and sped away on motorbikes. The Toronto police detective who gave the press conference on the scene spoke for 6 minutes and didn't once mention the word Jewish or anti-Semitic. He did not in any way infer that this was other than just some random kids again. You know those kids. And so, Barbara, it's not just that there's a crime wave. It's that every institution is trying to downplay it, including, by the way, the Jewish community, which has downplayed this arson attack on the school. So what do you make of this? Is it true that there's a crime wave against Jews in Canada? And is it true that it's being downplayed by authorities, including some official Jews?
Well, I think there is definitely a crime wave. We've had similar incidents in Montreal, as you know, and individuals have suffered anti-Semitic threats and harassment at the encampments. I mean, if the police, I agree with you that the police are downplaying it, but I'm asking myself, is this a decision that was taken by the police, or does this directive come from higher up, that how they're supposed to respond to the media, how they're supposed to communicate information about these incidents to the public? It's the mayor, isn't it, who is sort of in charge of the police?
In different cities, there's police commissions. And for example, in Ontario, and in every province, there's a cabinet minister, a position called Solicitor General, who's typically in charge of all police forces and prisons and some court processes. The prosecution is done by the Justice Minister, the Attorney General, but the Solicitor General is in charge of policing. I asked Ontario's Solicitor General, who happens to be an Orthodox Jewish man, I said, why aren't you laying charges? I asked him that about 4 times in a row. Here, I'll let you look at his answer.
How come there were no charges under Section 176.2 of the Criminal Code besetting a house of worship when all those protesters were outside the Bayit Synagogue in Thornhill?
Well, it's a question that you're going to have to ask the York Regional Police or the Attorney General. I'm here because I'm not going to see my community intimidated. I speak out all the time in support of our Jewish community. I'm not afraid to wear my kippah. I'm not afraid to go to synagogue every Sabbath, every Shabbat, and I'm going to do everything that I can to stand up for our inherent right to live safely in our own homes and communities. And I'm not going to stop.
everything short of prosecuting them, though, right? I mean, the U of T remains encamped with an illegal encampment. You're very good on Twitter, but have you actually done any prosecutions?
Well, again, this is something that you have to speak to the Attorney General.
He's your colleague. You're in the government. Why should you're on the inside?
No, what I can tell you is I'm working every day to
You're tweeting every day.
That our legislation, that our regulations are adhered to. I'm standing up with my community. I've been 34 weeks, almost every single week, to the rally at Bathurst and Shepherd in support of remembering the hostages who have been held against their will in captivity in Gaza, and it's not acceptable.
Well,
and that's exactly why.
It obviously is acceptable since you're not prosecuting it. You have condoned it. You've created a new normal where people can engage in low-level, permanent anti-Semitic crimes, assault, threats, mischief, because you guys don't prosecute. But there you are on Twitter, though, so congrats for that.
It's important that the Jewish community sees a person from their own community in the Ontario legislature standing up against hate every single day, who has the support of a premier who has called it out. Where are the other levels of government today who exercise the same voice that Premier Ford does, that we will not accept anti-Semitism?
You have accepted it. Where's the prosecution?
Again, this is something you can ask Minister Varani, you can ask the Prime Minister.
The province prosecutes. The province prosecutes. Better save your boss.
So I recorded that. That was outside the Jewish school that was shot at. And I found that very frustrating because every time I said, well, why aren't your police laying charges? Like I mentioned section 176.2 of the Criminal Code, which is a very specific section, Barbara, saying you cannot interrupt a religious service. It is that simple. You cannot disturb a gathering in a church or a synagogue. And that must have been written for a reason. Perhaps, like I said, in the U.S. South, sometimes the KKK would burn a cross on the lawn of a black church. And they had a specific law in the Canadian Criminal Code saying you can't disturb a religious gathering. There were enormous pro-Hamas protests outside Jewish synagogues for hours. No charges laid. That's what I was asking the Solicitor General, and his answers to me time and again were, well, I'm Jewish. I go to synagogue. I wear a yarmulke.
Yeah,
I'm a protester.
I'm actually, I was very frustrated at that clip, Ezra, because you were perfectly right to keep at him. And I mean, I call that, playing the Keepa card. I really don't like that. I don't like, I'm here, I'm in support. This one supports, that one supports, Doug Ford supports. Everybody supports and says, but and you're quite right. What they mean by support is this is terrible. It's just like Justin Trudeau just said he was disgusted at the thought of this anonymous letter that came with a threat to 100 Jewish institutions in Canada, that they're all under threat of who knows what, of some kind of attack. And everybody's disgusted and concerned. And the RCMP is supposed to be investigating. But I don't know, I get a lot of people writing to me and saying, what do they mean by this? What are they going to do about it? Why does it keep going on? And nobody actually arrests these people, or at least makes serious attempts to. Anyways, and I found that interview a little disconcerting because seems clear to me that Mr. Kirstner thinks he is doing something positive and something that is actually effective in some way by coming out to these protests and coming out and stating his intention, to keep living as a Jew and all that. But these are words. And you're right. I don't see a lot of action. And I do think it's a testing of the waters. And the fact that this threat to Jewish institutions has come out suggests to me that they can see there's not a lot of bite. There's bark, but no bite. And it's worthwhile exploring an escalation of violence to see what happens.
I saw that email sent to a lot of Jewish institutions. I read it someone sent me a copy of it right away. It said there is a bomb in a black backpack. We are the name, the courts, tell the media this. I read it and I immediately thought, this is BS. This is a hoax. This isn't
It probably
real.
is a hoax.
This
but
is someone. Well, and the reason I say that is Justin Trudeau weighed in. This is disgusting, and all the Liberal MP. This is outrageous because first of all, I think it'll be revealed to be a hoax, which will be used to say, "Oh, these Jews, they're overreacting." But second of all, they don't condemn actual crimes, real stuff that's going on. There was three days in a row a couple of weeks ago where I covered an arson a day. There were four arson attacks in a row in 3 days, and that's a real crime. I actually don't believe that email threat for 1 second. I think and for all I know, it could be a trick for someone who has a plan to say, "Oh, it's all a hoax." Where are they on actual enforcement of the law?